Sometimes one reckless act can change everything, especially when the person you least expect turns out to be the one who holds your future in their hands. The school bell rang, signaling the end of another long day at Maplewood High. Students poured out of the building like a river breaking free from its dam, eager to escape the confines of their classrooms and enjoy what little freedom they had left before heading home. Among them was Jake Thompson, a towering sophomore with an imposing presence that matched his reputation as one of the biggest bullies in school. Known for picking on smaller kids, mocking teachers under his breath, and generally making life miserable for anyone who crossed his path, Jake strutted through the halls with a smirk plastered across his face. Outside, the crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant bonfires. Parents waited by cars or stood chatting near the entrance while students milled about, some laughing with friends, others rushing off to catch buses or meet siblings. It was during this chaotic scene that Jake spotted her, a quiet old woman, slowly making her way across the parking lot. She wore a faded brown coat, clutched a worn leather handbag tightly against her chest, and leaned heavily on a wooden cane with each deliberate step. Her gray hair peeked out from beneath a knitted scarf, and her wrinkled face bore the weight of countless years. Jake's eyes narrowed as he watched her shuffle along. To him, she looked weak, vulnerable, an easy target. He didn't know why she was there. Maybe she'd come to pick up a grandchild or drop something off at the office. Whatever the reason, it didn't matter to Jake. All he saw was an opportunity to assert dominance, to remind everyone around him just how untouchable he thought he was. With a cocky grin, Jake nudged his buddy Tyler, who was walking beside him. "Hey, check out Grandma over there," he sneered, jerking his chin toward the elderly woman. Tyler snickered nervously but said nothing, knowing better than to question Jake when he got like this. Jake quickened his pace until he was directly behind her. Then, without warning, he gave her a hard shove from behind. The impact sent the old woman stumbling forward. She gasped in shock, flailing her arms as she tried desperately to regain her balance. Her cane clattered to the ground, and her handbag slipped from her grasp, spilling its contents onto the pavement. A few nearby students turned to look, startled by the commotion, but most kept moving, too afraid of drawing Jake's ire to intervene. For a moment, time seemed to slow down. The old woman teetered precariously, her frail body swaying dangerously close to falling completely. Finally, she managed to steady herself against a parked car, her breathing ragged and uneven. Tears welled up in her eyes, not just from fear, but from humiliation. Around her, scattered belongings lay strewn across the asphalt. A wallet, a pair of reading glasses, a small photo frame encased in glass. Jake threw his head back and laughed, clearly pleased with himself. "Oops, sorry, Granny," he taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. "Didn't see you there." His laughter echoed through the parking lot, mingling with the murmurs of disapproval from those who had witnessed the act. But Jake didn't care. In his mind, he'd proven yet again that no one could stand up to him. Just as Jake was about to walk away, still chuckling to himself, a sharp voice cut through the air like a knife. "What do you think you're doing?" It came from Mrs. Harper, the stern history teacher known for her zero-tolerance policy on bullying. She strode toward the scene with purpose, her heels clicking loudly against the pavement. Behind her trailed Principal Dawson, whose expression was unreadable but undeniably serious. Jake froze mid-step, suddenly feeling less confident. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but before he could say anything, Mrs. Harper bent down to help the shaken woman gather her things. As she picked up the photo frame, her eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, holding it up so Principal Dawson could see. "It's her." Principal Dawson's face paled. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Harper nodded solemnly. "Absolutely. I'd recognize her anywhere." curious, and now genuinely concerned, Jake edged closer, trying to get a glimpse of the photo. What he saw made his stomach drop. The picture showed the same old woman standing proudly next to none other than Dr. Eleanor Bennett, the world-renowned scientist and Nobel laureate who had single-handedly revolutionized cancer research. And not only that, Dr. Bennett was also one of the largest donors to Maplewood High, responsible for funding everything from new science labs to scholarships for underprivileged students. But the real kicker? The old woman in the photo wasn't just posing with Dr. Bennett. She was Dr. Bennett. Jake felt the blood drain from his face as realization dawned. The quiet, unassuming woman he'd just shoved and humiliated was none other than Dr. Eleanor Bennett herself. His legs went weak, and for the first time in his life, he found himself utterly speechless. Panic surged through him as he imagined the consequences of what he'd done. Would she press charges? Demand his expulsion? Cut off all funding to the school out of spite? Dr. Bennett straightened up, clutching her cane once more. Despite the ordeal she'd just endured, she radiated a quiet dignity that commanded respect. She fixed Jake with a piercing gaze, her sharp blue eyes boring into his soul. For several tense seconds, neither of them spoke. Then finally, she broke the silence. "Young man," she began, her voice calm but firm. "Do you have any idea how much potential you're wasting?" Jake blinked, caught off guard by her words. He'd expected anger, maybe even tears, but not this. Not wisdom. "I don't condone violence or cruelty," she continued, "but I also believe in second chances. You seem strong, capable, yet instead of using your strength to lift others up, you choose to tear them down. Why?" Her question hung heavy in the air, forcing Jake to confront truths he'd spent years avoiding. He swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice trembling. I didn't know." Dr. Bennett sighed, her expression softening slightly. "Apologies are a start, but actions speak louder than words. If you truly regret what you've done, prove it. Change. Grow. Be someone your community can be proud of." In the days following the incident, Jake found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions he had never experienced before. Guilt weighed heavily on him, gnawing at his conscience every time he closed his eyes. He couldn't shake the image of Dr. Bennett's piercing gaze or the quiet strength she exuded despite her frail appearance. For the first time in his life, Jake felt truly ashamed, not just because he had been caught, but because he realized how hollow and destructive his actions had been. It wasn't just about shoving an old woman. It was about all the times he'd bullied others, dismissed their feelings, and used fear to assert control. That realization hit him like a freight train, forcing him to confront the person he had become. Mrs. Harper and Principal Dawson took notice of Jake's change in demeanor. Almost immediately, they decided to intervene, not through punishment, but by offering him a chance to make amends. Mrs. Harper approached him one afternoon after class, handing him a flyer for the school's after-school tutoring program. "You're smart, Jake," she said firmly. "But intelligence means nothing if you don't use it to help others. Start here." At first, Jake hesitated. Volunteering? Helping kids? It sounded ridiculous to someone who had built his reputation on intimidation. But something inside him, a flicker of hope perhaps, urged him to give it a try. Reluctantly, he signed up. The tutoring sessions became a turning point for Jake. At first, he struggled to connect with the younger students, many of whom were wary of him due to his past behavior. One particular freshman, Ethan, reminded Jake painfully of himself 2 years prior, awkward, insecure, and desperate to fit in. Ethan avoided eye contact and barely spoke above a whisper, but Jake saw potential in him. Slowly, patiently, Jake began mentoring Ethan, not just in academics but in navigating the challenges of high school life. As weeks turned into months, Ethan started opening up, his confidence growing alongside his grades. Watching this transformation gave Jake a sense of purpose he had never known before. For once, he felt like he was making a positive impact. Word of Jake's efforts spread quietly throughout the school. While some students still mocked him behind his back, others began to see glimpses of the new Jake, the one trying to rise above his mistakes. Teachers noticed, too, praising his dedication and encouraging him to take on more responsibilities. Mrs. Harper even nominated him for a leadership role in the student council, citing his growth and commitment to helping others. Though Jake initially doubted whether he deserved such recognition, he eventually accepted the position, viewing it as another opportunity to prove himself worthy of trust. Dr. Eleanor Bennett played a significant role in Jake's journey, though she remained a subtle presence in his life. She occasionally visited the school to deliver inspiring lectures on perseverance, innovation, and the importance of using one's talents for good. Each time she came, she made it a point to check in on Jake, asking about his progress and offering words of wisdom. Her belief in second chances stayed with him, reminding him that people aren't defined solely by their worst moments. When Jake expressed his gratitude during one of these visits, Dr. Bennett simply smiled and said, "Actions speak louder than apologies, Jake. Keep going." By the time graduation rolled around, Jake was no longer the same boy who had strutted through the halls with arrogance and disdain. Instead, he stood tall, not out of pride, but out of humility and hard-earned respect. On the night of the ceremony, as valedictorian of his class, he delivered a heartfelt speech that left the audience in tears. He spoke candidly about his past mistakes, thanking those who had refused to give up on him even when he had given up on himself. His voice cracked with emotion as he acknowledged Dr. Bennett, seated front and center, and thanked her for teaching him the value of redemption. As their eyes met, she nodded approvingly, her expression soft yet resolute. Looking back, Jake knew his journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges ahead, moments where he might falter or doubt himself. But what mattered most was that he had taken the first step toward becoming someone better, not just for himself, but for the community he now wanted to serve. In the end, the aftermath of that fateful day in the parking lot had transformed him in ways he could never have imagined. What began as a reckless act of cruelty had ultimately led him down a path of self-discovery, forgiveness, and renewal, a testament to the power of second chances and the resilience of the human spirit.